Good morning, live from Waco, Texas. We've got McLean Stadium and the Brazos River in the background right before the OU Baylor game. Guys, welcome to Game Day U. I'm your host, Joseph Quinn, and we're switching things up this week. Joined with me today is Kenny Adair, Reagan Ledbetter, and Colin Kennedy. As you may notice, Carson Williams isn't here for reasons unbeknownst to us, actually. Just kidding. He's got a girlfriend now, so we've got a little bit of a change of pace here. So yeah, how you guys feeling? How's everything going?
This is one heck of a view, isn't this?
I'll tell you what.
One heck of a view to start off the morning and a big-time game today. Starting Big 12 play with a bang. I'm excited.
I'll tell you what.
You guys can't see it right now, though, but there is a beautiful sunrise right in front of us,
yeah.
for camera reasons. But yeah, Reagan.
I'll tell you what, this drive was a lot better than Ohio State.
Was it?
That 13-hour drive both ways was brutal. A nice quick 4-hour trip down here. We got down here yesterday, scouted things out, and it's game day.
Yeah, you mentioned the main part. It's the morning. I'm glad we're doing this show in the morning because in the afternoon it's going to get really hot just like yesterday.
Yeah.
Glad I'm not sweating right now. I don't know about you, Joe.
But the
feels
bugs
pretty good.
right now,
yes, the bugs are all over the place.
I don't know what it is about the bugs in Waco.
The view of it, I think, makes up for it, honestly.
Oh,
it's such a beautiful day at the moment, and I think it's going to be a beautiful day for football.
Okay, that's fair. And it is week 4 of college football, so we have a very good sense of where things are right now. Non-conference play is ending for a lot of teams, and we're beginning conference play throughout every conference. We're going to see this right now. So even though it is still a little early, it is early and late enough for us to make bold predictions and predictions of where we see this season going. So let's talk about that. The college football championship, the Big 12 championship, the Big 12 game, the Big 12 conference, the college football in general. I mean, what are you guys thinking right now?
You want to take it or you want me to take it first?
I'll go ahead and go. We're going to be talking about Big 12 play, obviously, heading into today, but looking forward. The Big 12 championship game is finally back, gentlemen.
Yes, it is.
And a lot of people are wanting to know who's going to be playing in that game. Off the bat, obviously, I've got OU and Oklahoma State taking on each other in a rematch later on in Arlington. I think those two teams are the prime contenders within the conference. Oklahoma State's offense could not be looking better right now. They are stacked at the receiving core. Mason Rudolph looking really, really confident in the pocket. Got to play some top-tier defenses, but right now they are firing on all cylinders. And as far as Oklahoma goes, they're really settling themselves not only on the offensive side of the ball, but defense as well. I think they're the two favorites to make the conference championship game.
I completely agree on that. I mean, I think these two teams are playing better right now than they've played in quite a few years now. Collectively, I think Mason Rudolph and Baker Mayfield are just leading that Heisman race right now. I think they're just those two electric quarterbacks in the Big 12, put up a lot of points and a lot of numbers, and I think it's just a clear favorite. These two they have the most weapons too. I mean, I think that if you look at the Big 12 as a whole, the next team that has a chance, I would say, is probably TCU, but I think Oklahoma and Oklahoma State all around have the most weapons and can do the best job.
You know, y'all made some really good points, so who am I to disagree? I'm going to go with OU and OSU as well. Baker Mayfield has been dominant throughout the season, so has the Oklahoma offense and defense. Oklahoma State, they haven't really played anybody. Their best talent was Pitt, but nonetheless, they have destroyed everybody that's been in their path.
Yeah.
So at the moment, today's going to be their first, I think, true test. I think we can all agree against TCU, a top 20 matchup. But, I mean, they're leading this conference. There's just nobody.
I mean, TCU probably has the second best chance.
But there's just nobody who can compete with the offensive explosion that Oklahoma State and OU bring to the table.
And I think they have the best two defenses of the Big 12 as well.
Yeah.
All around offense and defense. So I think that's going to help a lot. TCU, they can score a lot of points, but I'm concerned about their defensive side of the ball. I think that an all-around team, collective effort from both of those teams, they're the clear favorites right now.
Nonetheless, I don't think fans would complain if we saw Bedlam twice.
I don't think so either.
That's
why they moved it.
Yes, they would.
So,
yeah.
They almost singled out that matchup and predicted like that was going to happen. But let's move it.
Except for Joey.
Let's move it to November. Yeah, except for Joey Galloway, but that's irrelevant.
Still not completely wrong. He might have today.
He did the other night pick OU to win the Big 12 now, and
that's
so
called damage control, gentlemen.
Yes, it
is. He's trying to keep.
Of course, he changed his mind.
All right, but let's go back to this. So we've got the Big 12. We're seeing things kind of stack out because we saw Kansas State lose to Vanderbilt last week. But college football as a whole, what are you guys thinking as far as bold predictions go?
Oh man, bold predictions. Well, as for me, there's going to be a big-time game out there in Iowa. The Hawkeyes and the Penn State Nittany Lions taking on each other, and I've got a pretty big running back heading down that way, gentlemen. Mr. Saquon Barkley. In my opinion, the best running back in all of college football. And he's been in a little bit of a rough patch. Rushed for 172 yards week 1, but then hasn't gone over 100 since. He's going to break that trend in a big way today. I am predicting he will go for over 200 yards rushing today because he is a unique talent. And what the problem is for Iowa is you cannot in on just one thing for Penn State and their offense, because the ability of Trace McSorley to throw the football is so difficult to ignore that you can't key in on just this unique talent in Saquon Barkley. So when you have these two unique talents at the quarterback and running back position, you can't key in just on the run game. And next thing you know, Saquon Barkley is going to find some holes in that defense. I think he's going to have a big day today on the road in a tough environment. He's going to quiet the crowd in a big way. 200 yards.
Well, last week the reason he didn't have a big run game because he had 140-plus receiving yards.
Yeah,
so
he had a big day in the passing game.
Help his rushing.
So now he goes from the passing game to the run game. I think he's going to have a big day today, and I'm excited to see what he does on the road. I think this is going to be one of his first defining moments for his potential Heisman run. He needs to get back into it because, as we've noted earlier, Baker Mayfield and Mason Rudolph are going off so far this season, and if he wants to be the running back, the lead man, he's going to have to prove it today.
Not a top 10 rusher.
I'll tell you what, usually I made a bold prediction last week that Pitt was going to upset Oklahoma State, so it would seem logical for me to, pick something that's somewhat reasonable this week. But I'm going to keep with my, risk and go with Iowa upsetting Penn State in Iowa tonight. It's a primetime game.
Yeah.
Iowa is 3-0 right now, the best start they've had in a long time. Like I said, they're playing it at home. They got blown out by Penn State last year.
Yeah.
I just, for some reason, think that Iowa's going to knock them off. Something about those primetime games. And I think that, Saquon Barkley's having a great season. But that Iowa defense,
it's a tough one.
It's a tough one.
They have some very talented linebackers.
Exactly.
I will accede to you.
And I think that playing in a hostile environment at Kinnick Stadium is going to be very, very tough for Penn State. But I still do think Penn State is one of the top teams in the nation. I just think that these are one of those games, those primetime games where anything can happen, a rivalry game as well. And I think that there's a good chance we could see an upset tonight.
It's going to be a lot on Iowa offense.
Especially just for the fact that, Penn State has a target on their back. After last season, everyone wants them. Everyone's out to get them.
Yeah.
So.
Especially when you get blown out the year before. There's something about that rivalry where you want to, return that, and I think that, Iowa's going to be fighting hard tonight.
That kind of goes with my big, bold prediction. I don't think it's going to be Penn State, but I do think a top 5 team will go down at some point today. I might say Bama. I know you think Bama might have a shot to go down against Vanderbilt. First time they played since 2011. Vandy's playing well. They beat K-State last week, but, only put up 14. But their defense is legit. So I think it could be them, but I think if anybody loses, it's going to be USC.
How have they only played? That's the first time they played since 2011.
Yeah.
They're in the same conference.
That's weird to think, but there are a lot of teams in the SEC.
Unless the TV got their facts wrong.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
But yeah, I think it's going to be a good day for football, and I think you're going to see a lot more upsets.
There's only 2 top 25 matchups today, so this is one of those days where that could happen.
Upset alert.
You could see upsets, and so that's going to be exciting to watch today.
And we'll touch more on that in later segments because a lot of the big dogs aren't even covering these games, not even going out to football stadiums. We'll cover that more later on.
Don't get too in depth in that.
We got really in depth in the Penn State and Iowa segment, so we'll kind of slow that down. We're going to touch on that a little more, go a little more in depth on that. For now, that will conclude our first segment. When we come back, we'll still be here in Waco talking about the top games in this somewhat depleted week. Stay with us. Welcome back to Gameday U, once again live from Waco, Texas. Guys, we were just talking about this. The games aren't exactly primetime and amazing television, but there are some really good games going on, along with one interconference matchup with TCU and OSU. We've talked about that a little bit in the first segment about how these two teams are prolific offenses. We've seen what they can do. They can put up points, and they can do it real fast, and they can do it real well. Kenny Hill, Mason Rudolph are having amazing seasons, and I know you really want to talk about this matchup, so I'll let you start this off.
This has the potential to be one of the most exciting games of the season, honestly.
Offensively.
Well, defense, I don't know.
I disagree with y'all because I think TCU's defense is pretty dang good. What they did against Arkansas was pretty impressive. So I think,
but how good is Arkansas's offense?
They also gave up like 36 to SMU.
Yeah, they did. So they're up and down, but I think their defense is pretty good. Offensively, we both know they don't struggle in that area at all. Kenny Hill, going into the season, we saw at Big 12 Media Day, talked about needing to play better and needing his wide receivers to catch the football. Well, they've done just that. Their running backs really haven't been as big as much of an impact for this team as they were last year, and I think that's been the key for this TCU team, is they've been able to depend on every guy on the offensive side, and that's what's helped them out. On the other side, you've got probably one of the best duo wide receiver quarterback duo in the country, Mason Rudolph, James Washington.
Yeah.
We know how good those guys are.
Absolutely.
We've seen them. They've proved it week in, week out for the past 3 weeks now. I'm excited to see this game. I'm excited to see what Mason Rudolph does, because last week he had, 5 touchdowns and first interception.
He had a pretty good day.
This is just really the big first test for OSU. They've kind of played a very, very weak schedule coming into this game. You know, South Alabama, and they blew out Pitt last week. The game was over in the first quarter. But for me, it comes down to, obviously, offense. I think this is a game, a quarterback duel. I am surprised that College Game Day is not at this game, but I think this is the best game of the day. I think it's a huge matchup to start Big 12 play. Mason Rudolph, talk about a hot start. 11 touchdowns to start the year. But Hill, 75% of his passes, or completing 75% of his passes, 8 touchdowns. Here's the key to this game. TCU has never won a Big 12 game in the state of Oklahoma. How crazy is that?
That's pretty shocking.
Gone for 2 a couple years ago.
I don't think it's going to happen today. I see this is one of those games that's kind of a shootout. This is one of those games that goes into 40 points, 50 points.
Yeah.
And it really comes down to who can score more points.
And here's the thing. None of us here and most of America don't question OSU's prolific offense. That is out of the question. Mason Rudolph is pretty dang good. But this is the first chance we're actually going to see their defense, see what they can do against a legit offense.
That's the thing.
That's what I'm excited about.
You can score a lot of points against South Alabama and Pitt, but when you're playing a team who can score just as much, then you realize how good of a team you actually are. And the problem is James Washington is kind of the guy coming into this season. It's the Blitnikoff favorite. Yeah. He really hasn't been the key target for Mason Rudolph yet this year. So I look for him kind of being the guy that they're going to go to today. He's going to really heat up in Big 12 play. But like I said, last week he wasn't really a part of the action, at least the first part of the game.
Well, we're talking so much about the Oklahoma State receiving core, and especially James Washington. But guys, TCU's receiving core as well, they are stacked with talent. And what I love about them is, as far as Oklahoma State goes, James Washington is going to get his. Jalen McCleskey is going to get his. But TCU's receiving core is very similar to Oklahoma's, in my opinion, where the ball can go anywhere on the field, and that player is going to make an impact play. They have a star in the making in Jalen Reagor, one of the top freshmen coming into this year out of Waxahachie, Texas. That kid is going to be really, really good. And so far in his freshman season, he is playing off the charts. But the key for me here, one of two things. As far as Oklahoma State, Chad Whitener at linebacker is going to have to command his defense, because TCU's offense especially is very based off of motions and versatility. And Chad's going to have to be able to make the correct calls, manage his defense, get them prepared. And as far as TCU goes, we talk about these prolific offenses. If TCU wants a chance in this ball game, I think they're going to have to run the ball today. Yes. Kyle Hicks especially, he's going to have to be big in this game, because if they can establish time of possession, keep drives going forward, and keep the ball away from Oklahoma State's offense, they have a chance to win this game.
Last week, Mason Rudolph, 4 wide receivers, 100 yards each. You got to slow down at least 2 of them.
Well, be on the lookout for that game. That'll be on 2:30 on ESPN. But we'll keep going a little east and a little south to the Southeast Conference. Mississippi State and Georgia, they had some really exciting matchups last week, and they're head-to-head this week. Reagan, I'll let you take this one away.
I'll tell you what. This can be a big game. Who would have thought Mississippi State, Georgia coming into this week would be a top game to watch? And it actually is. Mississippi State has the best of both worlds right now. They're leading in scoring offense with 48 points a game and 9 points against. That's a recipe for success, especially in the SEC when not a lot of points are scored. I think that a key to this game is going to be Nick Fitzgerald. 543 yards, 7 touchdowns this year, 5 touchdowns running. That's going to be huge. Jake Fromm has really stepped in for Georgia, though. He's had to come in to replace Eason, but he's done a good job. I mean, honestly, and Chubb, 4 touchdowns, your favorite guy. I think this is going to be one of those games where it's kind of going to be a mid-range scoring game, but I think Mississippi State is going to have a chance to win this game. They're hot right now.
And right now, Nick Fitzgerald, no one's talking about this kid, but he could be making a dark horse Heisman candidacy.
Who would have thought?
And you look at this guy. Especially last year, he was a good football player, but no one wanted to talk about him because Mississippi State had some questionable times during their season. And now, this kid has stormed out, beat LSU last week.
Blew out LSU.
Big time win there. And my favorite thing to talk about is the guy leading the Bulldogs of Mississippi State, Dan Mullen, does not get enough credit. He is one heck of a football coach. This guy is one of the best developers of talent in the country. He works with almost the bare minimum, 2-star guys, 3-star guys, some JUCO products. Not a lot of them are ready to play college football off the bat, and he gets them prepared and wins ball games with them. I'm thoroughly impressed with the job he's done down
And
there.
that's exactly what it is. He's a developing coach. And when you are able to develop your players from freshman year all the way to their senior year, you build not only talent, but you build discipline, and that's what you need in a SEC type environment. But I'm on the Georgia side of this game, honestly. Like you said, the quarterback's he's done his job for the most part. But Nick Chubb, I don't think they're going to be able to stop him. They were able to stop LSU. They held him to 7 points last week.
Yep.
But LSU doesn't have a quarterback. Fromm is a quarterback. He's a very good pocket passer, and when you've got a good quarterback who can control the game, and you've got a running back that can take over whenever he wants, that's like y'all said for Mississippi State, the recipe they have for success. That's a recipe for offensive success when you have a quarterback who can maintain control and a running back who can do what he wants with the defense.
Another key to this game is when you play in the SEC, home field advantage is a real thing. And I think that, playing at Georgia in Athens is going to be key for this Georgia team. But something about Georgia just seems like they're so young. And with Nick Fitzgerald, his ability to pass the ball and be a premier passer, but also run the ball and make things happen with his legs, that is going to be huge for them. And I think Mississippi State, if they could score 30, 35 points, they can win this game.
Okay, now I got a quick couple of questions for you. What is Vanderbilt's record?
3-0.
What is Duke's record?
3-0.
What is Mississippi State's record?
3-0.
Here's a funny thing that happened. This is a little quick fun fact.
God, I got all those right.
Good job.
These 3 teams going 3-0. This is the first time this has happened predating Pearl Harbor, the attack there. So that's a
bringing
really,
up a
really
sad
long time.
moment.
It's a sad moment.
Duke is now a football school.
Yeah.
And Baylor did it to him.
All right, we're
Anyways.
going to keep going after that because it is kind of true.
Baylor fan around.
Anyway, Alabama, Vanderbilt, you guys said that you could possibly see an upset here just because
Yes,
of the
I did.
nature of this week. Colin, lead us off.
Well, this is going to be an interesting game for me because Vanderbilt's playing good football right now, especially
They
on
are.
defense. I like what they're doing, and the key here is there's a lot of question marks surrounding Jalen Hurts. And the Alabama Crimson Tide have a pretty talented young man on the bench, Tua Tagovailoa. It's a mouthful. However, he can throw the ball all over the park, and a lot of Bama fans are calling for him. So if you don't see Alabama have offensive success early on, be prepared to see that young man because Vanderbilt brings it on the defensive end, and they're going to try and apply pressure. Because in my opinion, the only way they can stay in this ball game is get turnovers and get to the quarterback. If you let Jalen Hurts sit behind that massive offensive line and find receivers like Calvin Ridley,
Yes.
it's going to be a long, long day for Vanderbilt.
Vandy's head coach, Derek Mason, said at SEC Media Days that he does not fear anybody and he is ready for Bama. Well, today's the day. You got your wish. I think that, I can't believe that we're saying this, but I really do think Vandy has a chance. I think Alabama is in a weird spot right now. I mean, you give up almost 400 yards last week to Colorado State at home. Something about Bama's defense this year just doesn't seem the same. They're going to be good down the stretch. That's inevitable. But I think to start the season, there's a lot of questions. I think Nick Saban's kind of getting frustrated with a lot of his lack of effort from his players on defense. But I think Kyle Shermer, the quarterback for Vandy,
He's a good player.
he may have over 700 yards passing. That's great and all. But here's the key. No interceptions.
Can't.
And when you play Alabama and their stout defense,
Yes.
even though they've been struggling,
Yes.
it is key to hold on to the football. If you turn the ball over against Bama, you will lose. There's no question about it. And I think the ability for Vandy to hold on to the football, not make dumb decisions by Kyle Shermer, that's going to be key for them. And I think that they have a chance playing at home to beat Bama. Derek Mason's confident. Well, he gets his wish.
It's one thing for your head coach to say you're not scared, but you're not the one out there playing. You can be confident in your players, but do your players have confidence? That's the key going into this game for me. How confident are they? Another key, you mentioned it. You can't make mistakes against Alabama because we see it. We've seen
They are
it
an NFL caliber football team.
We've seen it for how many years now? They're not the most athletic most of the time. They're the strongest, but they're the most disciplined. And when you play a team that's more disciplined than you, if you make a mistake against them, that ends up being the problem that causes you to lose the football game. And we saw it with Florida State. We've seen it throughout a tremendous amount of years now. And I think that's what it is. I think Bama's going to be the more disciplined team. I don't know if Vandy's going to live up to the hype. I wouldn't be shocked if we see an upset. kinda. I'd still be shocked that Vandy beat Alabama. But nonetheless, I think Bama, when it comes down to it, they're just a more disciplined team. So take all the hype out the way. Nick Saban is one of the best coaches in the country, and the way he coaches, like I said, discipline.
It's gonna be a fun game to watch. It's kind of weird to say that Vandy and Bama is gonna be a fun game to watch, but it will be. I think it's gonna be an exciting one, and this could be one of those upsets we were talking about.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about that. And the next game, Penn State at Iowa, we touched on this earlier, and here's the funny thing that happened here. A lot of schools, you would think that a top 5 team marches into your home arena and the students would be dying to go to these games. Well, Iowa is selling tickets for $95 for their students, and they still have over 3,000 unsold. So
unbelievable.
That is unbelievable to have that kind of game. But that is the next game we are talking about. Penn State and Iowa toss-up. Who wants to talk about it?
You know, that's the thing. I'm with the fans. I know you're very excited. I know you're very excited about this game. I'm not. I think it's going to be a blowout. I think Penn State is going to take this very easily. I just don't. Iowa's defense is good, but they're just good. And when you have an offense as explosive as Penn State's with McSorley and with Saquon Barkley, a good defense doesn't cut it. I don't care how good or bad Penn State's defense is. They're the best team in the Big Ten right now, and they're playing like it. They're the hottest team in the Big Ten right now. And Iowa, yeah, they're good, but again, you can't just be good and expect to have success against a team like Penn State. I think Penn State takes this easily.
Problem is Penn State really hasn't played anybody yet. Saquon Barkley hasn't played a full game, and I think that playing at Iowa at a hostile environment like that is where they're going to be challenged. You know, Iowa may not be the best team in the Big Ten. They're still 3-0. They're still coming into this game 3-0, just like Penn State is. I think they still have a chance in this. But my key to the game, you know, on the Penn State side of the football, is they have 9 takeaways this year and 49 points off turnovers. That's 7 touchdowns in 3 games off turnovers. That's going to be huge. If Iowa can hold on to the football today, I think they have a chance playing at home to beat Penn State.
Well, you talk about this game, and obviously turnovers are a big deal, but you're going to have to just maintain drives because, in my opinion, Iowa is going to want the football as much as it can because I don't know how Iowa's offense is going to be able to fare in this game. I think Penn State's defense gets overlooked a lot, but they are consistently a decent defense year in and year out in the Big Ten, and they're able to be very versatile. They can cover those spread offenses, but when it comes down to these trench-style football games, they can hold to their test. Now, the thing for me is the offensive line of Penn State. They're going to have to establish themselves up front because Iowa is very, very well known for establishing themselves on the line of scrimmage, both on offense and on defense. And if Penn State's going to come into this football game and maintain drives, quiet the crowd, and get Saquon Barkley 200 yards rushing, which is my bold prediction.
If they can stop Saquon Barkley and make Trace McSorley do it all, Iowa has a chance. If Barkley has the day that you think he will have, or even close to that, Iowa can't win.
That's a really big if they can shut down Saquon Barkley. I don't
or Trace McSorley. McSorley is a talent himself.
I will call you the Nostradamus of football if that happens.
Well, see, I think he'll have 200 yards in all-purpose yards, but rushing is.
Hey, if we're going to go bold predictions, I got to go bold.
Might as well go bold. Yeah, I don't disagree with you. I'm just saying, more reality-wise, I think it's going to be all-purpose yards, if anything.
Wait, so who's your top 5 team that's going to go down?
I think it's either going to be USC or Bama. I'm leaning more towards USC, especially after last week, which we'll get into that a little bit later. But I think it's going to be USC, if anybody, honestly.
That's fair.
All right, that Penn State and Iowa game will be at 6:30 on ABC. That concludes Around the Nation. When we come back, the Instio team from will take over. Stay with us.
Hi, and welcome back to Gameday U. My name is Madeline Roberts, and I'm here with Sam Brown and Spencer Royce. We are your in-studio team, guys. How are we doing today?
I'm good. I'm excited.
Feeling awake?
It's a little early. It was a little tough getting out of bed this morning, but it's all worth it in the end.
Nothing's wrong with Saturdays. Saturdays are perfect.
That's true, especially when there's football.
Exactly.
All right, well, let's talk about some of the top stories this week. First off, College Game Day is in New York City this week. Guys, the nearest FBS game is in Annapolis, and it's Navy taking on Cincinnati. What do you think of this? What do you think of them being in NYC where there's no football games going on?
You want to go first? Yeah.
I'll take it. I don't understand. That simply said, I don't understand what the reasoning here is. I mean, you think about it. They're going to the New York Stock Exchange. I don't understand. What are we going to talk about? Hey, the economy's bad, but there's some football games going on, so let's go ahead and talk about those.
Nowhere near here, but
Nowhere near.
make sure you watch them.
Yeah, I mean, it just, when you think about the games, obviously these aren't high-powered matchups. This is in Oklahoma and Ohio State,
Right.
but you've still got OK State TCU. You've still got Mississippi State at Georgia. You've got a great Penn State game. You got a great Bama game. And even those weeks where they go to like James Madison or like smaller schools, it's a perfect opportunity to do one of those and set up College Game Day for bigger matchups down the road.
Yeah, like the FCS schools.
Yeah.
And they usually do that once a year. I think they did North Dakota State a few years back and James Madison last year.
Yeah.
And it just kind of gives that really small, tight-knit, small school environment.
The opposite of being in New York City, pretty much.
Yeah.
But whenever I first thought about it, I thought to myself, yeah, that doesn't make any sense. Why would you go there? But one thing that I realized was New York City, there's no like set college program, but it is a melting pot of all college fans. Like someone's got to have a team if you're a sports fan. So I think it's going to kind of give a unique environment to where it's just going to be football fans there. That first time to be near the show, they're going to all just be able to be there and just group up as just a unit and just support College Game Day. Now it's going to be kind of different with Corso and just not being able to like be with the fans of the game that he's picking, putting the head on, riling someone up.
I was
on
wondering,
the
like, who is like, what game is he going to do the headgear for? Like, I have no idea.
Oh yeah, that's a good point. What's he going to do for the
I don't know
headgear?
what he's going to do. Maybe he's just going to do it for every game. Like you'll see at USC, you'll see him pull out a Trojan for USC and Cal or something. Yeah, he's just out of nowhere.
He's just gonna have like 45 heads under the desk, just come through, just stack them on.
Just stack them up, like line them up behind the desk.
It'll be
or
interesting
like
to see afterward the head count for how many people were there. I mean, you'd think there'd be a ton of people, but at the same time, what if not a lot of people show up just because they're not there to support
there's no football game.
Specific school.
You think about it.
I mean, you're in such a densely populated area, though. I feel like it's going to even look more crowded than even if people don't want to be around. There's still going to be people around.
But like, what the beauty of College Game Day and the places they go is the college environment, the college students. You go to Game Day. You go to Game Day. There's not going to be a bunch of college students. I mean, students from NYU aren't just going to go to the New York Stock Exchange on Times Square. I feel like this is just like a publicity stunt, like a marketing thing, and just say they went to Times Square.
It just doesn't feel like the tradition. It's
just, it doesn't feel like the same College Game Day.
Correct.
What do you think about, because probably the biggest game this week is TCU Oklahoma State in Stillwater.
Yeah.
But do you think maybe in the people who plan where College Game Day goes, those people were thinking, Bedlam. Bedlam's coming up, Oklahoma at Oklahoma State. That's probably going to be a huge game. I mean, is that justified in saying we don't want to go to the same place twice in the same year, so we're going to put that off?
I think that's justified, but there's other matchups.
You could easily have gone Georgia, Mississippi State.
Yeah, you easily could have gone to Georgia. I don't think you'll see Georgia at another College Game Day this season. It's a great atmosphere. I don't see why that wouldn't have been an issue. I think they should have just gone there, honestly.
Yeah.
That would have been my pick, honestly.
Especially coming off that Mississippi State game where they just trounced LSU. Just destroyed them. So
Mississippi State's on fire. Georgia's still number 11 in the country. Mississippi State's a favorite in Georgia. That's got to set a fire under Georgia, and I mean, it just feels like it'd be a better pick than just going to New York just to say you went to New York.
It's definitely a little bit strange. Going into our next top story of this week, Clemson's looking pretty good so far this season. Do you guys think they're poised for another title run?
I think they're definitely poised for another Final Four playoff matchup. It's too early for me to be able to tell whether they're going to get to that big game, but they definitely look like they haven't lost a step at all. Backup quarterback comes in, does a fantastic job. The defense doesn't look like it's lost a step even after losing Bulware. Some of that defensive line, just kind of like the emotional appeal of that title team that you had that, I mean, beat Alabama in one of like the best college football games of all time.
Yeah.
And it's just nice to see that the recruiting is still done so well and they can still put forth a team that could win it all again.
Yeah, I mean, I can't say enough about Kelly Bryant. He was my call out. He was my call out the Ohio State game. He stepped up big against Auburn. He stepped up big against Louisville. Yeah. He really looks like the future of Clemson. He looks like the future of college football.
His resume
I'll say
is
it right
nice
now.
already.
His
5
resume is
rushing
nice.
touchdowns already this season.
He looks electric. People have said that it's hard to fill Deshaun Watson's shoes. I mean, you talk about a guy who is arguably Clemson's best player all time, their biggest leader, just a guy that you can't say enough about. But Kelly Bryant is athletic. He's athletic like Deshaun Watson is. He can make the throws that Deshaun Watson makes, and we've seen that so far. And he's tough. I mean, you saw him against that Auburn game. He got beat around, and he just gets back up and keeps playing.
SEC defense.
Shut him up. Yeah, against the big boy SEC defense. Yeah.
I mean, hopefully, like you said, fill in Deshaun Watson's shoes. Hopefully, he just brings his own shoes, makes him even a little bit bigger, impresses Dabo. Just, hey, I got my own pair. It's fine.
I mean, it helps. He's got a great wide receiving core. I mean, you talk about Deion Kane, Ray McLeod, Hunter Renfrow, who got the game-winning touchdown in the national championship. They're stacked on offense. They're stacked on the D-line, too. Guys like Clelin Ferrell, who's coming out of nowhere. And it's really impressive to see. Everyone thought that they would lose a step, stay in the top 25.
Oh, I definitely did,
I didn't know what Kelly Bryant brought to the table. I thought they were going to stay in the top 25 but finish like in the 15 range. And now you're looking up, they're a top 10 team, and they're number 3 in the country, number 2, poised for another run at it. I think they've got all the tools.
And you know they all love playing for that coach.
Oh, yeah.
Dabo Sweeney.
Sure.
He's just so into the game, and you can tell he just loves it.
Yeah,
everything about it.
He's just got a vibe. It's like when we talk about Lincoln Riley, the vibe that he brings. Dabo Sweeney's got that same. He's not that same vibe, but he's got a vibe of his own. He's electric. He's got a certain passion. The players love him. Coaches love him.
He cares so much about every aspect of the game, the fans, everything.
Yeah.
This is all him.
Oh yeah, it's unbelievable.
You mentioned their receiving core. Clemson has 12 different receivers with at least 2 catches. And on top of that,
crazy.
They have 5 players with a rushing touchdown already this season. So definitely a lot of talent on that team.
Reminds me of OU's
Not
offense.
really missing
It's like
a
the
step.
Atlanta Falcons of college football.
Yeah, it reminds me of OU's offense. Just everyone
Absolutely.
getting to share the
Spread
pie.
around in the offense, yeah, for sure. All right, guys. What do you think about icing a kicker when you're up 53-0? Sam, paint this picture
First
for
of all,
us.
56.
Paint this picture for us. 56-0, excuse me, yeah. Paint this picture for us. What happened in this game?
Penn State versus Georgia State. With 11 seconds left in the game, Georgia State just wants to get some points on the board.
They just want 3 points.
They just want that 38-yard field goal to just go through the uprights. And James Franklin just ices the kicker, calls a timeout. You could tell at the look at his face, he doesn't like the call. He doesn't like the fact that they called a timeout. I mean, look at his face right here. Just shakes his head no. He doesn't like it. It's just, I don't understand. But I don't understand what the point is. You lose 56-3. You think you're going to lose your your number 4 spot because you lost 56-3?
Yeah, it's just kind of, it's not fun to watch. Like, it's a team that you just beat down the entire game, the entire performance. You trashed them, and 11 seconds, and then you wait till the ball's in the air.
Yeah,
like the ball's in the air.
The refs called the timeout a little late.
But like you know that like they had to call it before. Obviously, the ball was hiked, but as a viewer, you see it in the air, and you're like, oh, they got it off. Like just. I mean, who's even watching? But still, for that kicker, at least he got some work in.
But do you think the Penn State fans care? Like, that the field goal misses? Like, honestly, I feel like they'd feel bad. I'd feel bad.
I mean, the 56-0 looks a lot prettier, but at that point,
it's
all right,
just,
guys.
yeah.
I'm going to defend James Franklin here. Just a second. Just hear me out. Hear me out. After the game, he was obviously asked about this. Like, dude, what are you doing icing this kicker when you're up 56-0? And he said, you know, it was my 4th string guys out there. They didn't know how to line up. So we had to call a timeout to bring these guys in to line up correctly. Now, maybe he's lying. I mean, that seems like a good cop-out. Like, oh, yeah, these guys didn't know what they were doing.
It took him a little while longer, I feel like, to call a timeout if that was the case. Because he knew what defense was out there because they were out there the play before. So I feel like he would call it immediately.
Here's what I think about that. You think about it. So they don't know how to line up. They don't know how to run. Okay, like get them to stand there. Who cares? It's 3 points. Like that's the big deal. Like you think that because they're gonna like a timeout is gonna help them. Like okay, just like line up and then just run. Like it really doesn't make that much of a difference in my opinion. I think that they could have easily just spared them the trouble. And now I mean they win 56-0. They get to hold on to that number 4 spot now because of it. Like I don't know.
Yeah, it'd be kind of like basketball game. You're up by like 40 points in the end. You have the ball instead of just running the clock out. You shoot a 3.
Yeah, it's just like to like rub it in their faces, like, hey, we beat you guys down.
I mean, if you think about it, there are times when coaches accidentally ice their own kickers because they just see something and they're like, hey, I need to call timeout, and maybe it takes them a minute to get the ref's attention, and by that point they've snapped the ball, kicked the field goal, and it goes in, but then there's a timeout called.
I guess you just hope that he didn't really think about what was going on, just second nature.
Right. I mean, obviously, pretty sure he's the only one that knows. Really and truly,
what was going through,
you know, we'll probably never know.
I don't even know if the players know. Like maybe like he told them like, hey, just run or like something. Like I don't know what to tell you guys. Like I don't know. It's interesting to see like the play after. I didn't get to see the play after. I know they missed the field goal, but you just wonder like how the players react to that. And just how everyone reacts to that. I know I didn't like it.
I wasn't a huge
hopefully,
fan.
I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt in my mind, but
you see the good in people. I respect that.
Yeah, I do. All right, moving on to some local news. 2 quarterbacks in Oklahoma, probably in the Heisman race, as the guys were talking about a little bit earlier. They touched on this. What are your thoughts on this? Mason Rudolph, Baker Mayfield.
I'd say they're 1 and 2. I'd say
they gotta be. They gotta be 1 and 2
yeah,
right now.
I'd say Baker's number 1, Rudolph's number 2. And you talk about guys who are so dynamic on the offensive side. Baker, 10 touchdowns, no interceptions. Mason Rudolph, 11 touchdowns, 1 interception. They do so much. They're so loaded, and it'll be interesting to see what Mason Rudolph does from here because they haven't played anyone big. I mean, you talk about South Alabama and Pitt. Reagan's upset pick. Pitt was down 45.
Never forget.
45-7 at halftime, 49-7 at halftime. I mean, I want to see what he does against the big boys, and you're going to see that tonight. How he does against
Rudolph's
TCU.
11-1. That mean he hasn't even played full games some of the times. Like first half last week, they threw 5 touchdowns.
423 and 5 touchdowns in the first half.
And Baker's obviously lost some time in the fourth quarter, let Kyler Murray come in and do all that. So both these players with phenomenal stats through the first 2-3 weeks of the season, and of course OU has that big game, Ohio State, so that helps Baker in the Heisman race. So I'd put him at 1, and you can make a case for Saquon Barkley to sneak up there in the 2 or 3 spot. But Heisman voting has and will always, I feel like, favor a quarterback, just like the MVP voting does in most sports for football, at least. Favor the playmaker, the guy in charge.
How far do you think that Ohio State win will carry? I mean, but by the time they get to the end of the season, it's like, I mean, the Ohio State win obviously huge, but it's kind of old news at that point.
I think when you think about it,
it's just going to be the head-to-head matchup.
Yeah, I think when you look farther down the road, should this OU team go undefeated, should this team run the table, win the Big 12, you say, wow, Baker performed against Ohio State. He performed against Oklahoma State. He performed against TCU. He performed at Kansas State. He performed in the Red River rivalry. I think that it's just like the games will stack up, and Ohio State is just going to be another one of those unbelievable performances for Baker.
That's why it's going to be so interesting to see if both of these players can stay at the top of the Heisman race for whenever that matchup comes. 2 undefeated teams, all the implications for a playoff title berth, a Heisman winner, because the winner of that game ultimately, whoever plays better, is going to get a big nod in the Heisman voting when the head-to-head matchup. So I'm looking for that later on.
I think it's just going to be, if these players keep it up, just the winner of the Heisman is just whoever outplayed the other in Bedlam. Whether it's the first game or should they see each other again in the Big 12 championship.
Similar.
If they stay the same and they just keep playing unbelievably, you're going to see both these guys in New York.
Something I think will help Mason Rudolph is he has a great receiving core around him, arguably the best in the country. You got Marcel Aitman, James Washington. Like, these guys are experienced. Jalen McCleskey, they've been terrific. And I mean, not that OU's have disappointed at all. If anything, they've been better than I anticipated, at least.
They've been better than everyone anticipated.
Right, yeah, I would agree. But, I mean, if you got those, I mean, that core is just fantastic. So I don't know if that'll really give him the edge.
And the
or if it'll be about even.
The defenses they're playing against, they're going to have a chance to really blow their stats up.
Oh, yeah.
Gotta love the Big 12. Gotta love the Big 12.
All right, guys, well, we're going to take a break and head back to the guys in Waco, but we will be back later on.
Welcome back to Gameday U. Once again, we are in Waco, Texas.
The sun is coming up.
Yeah, it is.
Very
beating
hot
down
right now
at this point, really.
because of where we're at. But because the sun's up, the tailgaters and sailgaters are starting to prepare for the later festivities of today. But moving on, thanks again to the in-studio team, we are moving to 4 downs, 4 hot takes, and 4 hot answers.
Let's go.
Let's go ahead. First down. Did we learn more about Texas than USC last week? Kenneth,
Colin, I know you don't, really like to say. I'm gonna start it off, but I know you don't like it.
Okay.
I think we learned more from Texas, if anything. I thought we saw a lot from their defense. Their defense had some big moments in that game that really kept the Longhorns in the game and really led them to double overtime. It was the offense's fault they lost because they had that fumble, in the second overtime that really kind of gave USC the push to get the win over with. But I saw a lot from Texas defense. Saw a lot more than what we've seen in the past couple of years. I saw the one thing that I haven't seen in a while, and that's fight. And that Texas defense, that's
their fight song.
Yeah, it was
Texas
hard.
fight. You mean
Texas fight?
Yeah.
I mean, it was hard. They really loved. It looked like they were really enjoying having fun and playing football, and were really trying to keep this Longhorn team in the game. And they did just that. I mean, they brought them back. They gave them a lot of confidence. So I was really impressed with the Texas defense that I saw that night. don't want to say I'm impressed with them for the season. Oh, look, a cloud went over the sun. Congratulations. I can actually see. But, yeah, I was really impressed with the defense. I saw a lot more from the Texas team than I did USC. USC was not that good.
I completely agree with that. I think honestly, we saw more from the Texas team and their fight. Ellinger did not have a good start to the game, but had grit at the end of the game to come back, tie the ball game up, get the lead. And I mean, if it wasn't for that long drive by USC at the end of the game, they should have had that game wrapped up. But I mean, that was one of the best football games we've seen in a while. I think Texas is getting there. I mean, they're 1-2. They had a rough start to this season. They blew out San Jose State, but I think they're closer. And I think that, you know, playing on the road at USC and playing the way they did, taking it to overtime, and at least getting close against a top 5 team is key for your program. Texas fans want to see it now. They're tired of that answer. They're tired of the we're getting there. They're tired of the we're rebuilding. But I think they should take a lot away from that USC game because it was their chance to finally see their team compete against a good team at a high level. And that's what we saw on Saturday night.
That's what I was going to ask. You said that they're getting there. Is that a last year or the year before they're getting there? Or is that a legit they're actually getting
I think they're actually competing better now. I think with Charlie Strong, it was a different kind of getting there. They were kind of just like middle of the road. There was kind of a lot of mediocrity. There wasn't really any excitement. There wasn't any positives. I think that, you know, going on the road against USC in a primetime game like that, in a decently tough place to play, they were able to come out of there with a lot of positives. And I think Tom Herman as a coach, you know, even though he has 2 losses to start his season, I think that you can take a lot of positives from that game. He needs to get his recruits in here. That's what we say about every coach. You can't have it now. As much as it sucks, you can't have that perfect success as soon as you start because you have to get your guys in. You have to kind of get your system going. And I think Texas saw a glimpse of that on Saturday night.
Gentlemen, I'm a realist. And I like to say things that sometimes people don't like to hear.
Sorry, you predicted 200 yards for Saquon Barkley.
Yeah, I am a realist. Well, if we're going to go bold, we're going to go bold. However, Kenny, didn't Texas lose to Maryland?
Okay, we're talking about USC.
No.
The game.
Didn't Texas lose to Maryland?
A little bit.
Didn't USC struggle to Western Michigan? Yeah. So what we've learned, everyone, is that everyone is hyping these two teams up way too much. Darnold is not as good as we think he is. This Texas team is still coming together, but we're going to take a game where two teams who have struggled quite often so far this season, and we're going to blow it out of proportion because of the brand names. Everyone needs to listen when I say, calm down on the Texas and USC hype. These two teams are still trying to develop. They're still trying to settle into themselves, and we're trying so hard to make them national contenders. The
question was,
what did you learn? You're acting like a head coach right now when they ask you a tough question and just going around it.
No, what we've learned is that both teams are getting overhyped.
Okay, didn't say that.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. We've learned that both teams are getting way too hyped up for where they're at in their stage of development currently.
So you learned
it's a very, very easy question.
You learned nothing positive from either team.
What I learned is that we went into this game expecting fireworks, and while it was a good game,
I never thought that.
I thought they were over promoting it.
A lot of people thought that this is going to be another big game.
Connected to that.
But then we watched, and yet again we saw two teams that are still struggling and currently developing into their current mold. I think what we've learned, I will say, if we're going to talk about what we've learned, Texas defense is further along the way than the offense, obviously. But what we're learning from both teams is that they are not where everyone across the country wants them to be.
Thanks for that long rant.
There was definitely more hype around USC, and I think they played a closer game than they should have. I think Texas played a lot better than anybody would expect them to play. You know, I'm not a Texas fan, but I think that they played better, but the question was, where did you learn more about? And I learned more about Texas, and so
it took you 5 minutes to get to that.
He thought we were going to say they were national contenders.
Yeah.
I'm like, man, dude, I ain't saying that.
People picked Texas to pick finish in the top 4 in the Big 12, but we're going to sit here and act like we're going to overlook them.
Now let's talk about teams that you guys think.
Are you upset?
He kind of looks like a little red, but I'm not sure if that's from the sun or not. But anyway,
it's definitely from the sun.
Salty.
From both.
You guys, we've talked about this in pretty much every show to date. But Michigan, do you guys think they are a front runner to win the Big Ten? I know Reagan, Nike, Kenneth, you guys are really down on them.
No, they're not.
I've got everyone fired up now. I've got the attitude adjusted.
They're not a front runner. Michigan is a great team. They're a great coach, all those things. But if you don't have a solid quarterback, which they don't, in Wilton Speight, you can't be I feel like you can't be a good team. I think Ohio State is a better team. I think that Penn State is a better team. You know, I said Penn State's going to get upset today, or possibly. I think all around, Penn State is a better team than Michigan. I think Ohio State has way more talent on the football field, and they have a quarterback who at least can compete.
Yeah.
In Ohio State, I think there's just too much, separation between a Michigan team. They play Florida, which Florida's not very good. So.
No, they're.
I fired up the panel here, so I've done my job. But guys,
at least I answered the question.
I've answered the question. What did we learn? We learned that both of them are overhyped. And what we're learning right now about Michigan is that they don't have the quarterback to contend. But we're going to try and pick them to win the Big Ten? No. Right now, Penn State's my clear-cut favorite. They have a stacked offense, a quarterback that can do whatever he wants on the football field, and obviously the best running back in college football. They are the favorites. And Ohio State is still a very good football team as well. But Michigan, once again, the brand name is in effect here. But they don't have the quarterback to contend. The defense is still fairly young.
They're the LSU of the Big Ten.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Great defense.
No quarterback.
No quarterback.
And they're trying to get their guys developed. They bring in some recruits that could potentially fix that problem. But right now, you have to ride out Wilton Spate, and he can't get it done, in my opinion.
First of all, I'm going to call you out. Stop saying we're, because none of us have said anything good about Michigan, okay?
No, yeah.
I don't think they're the front runner. I agree with you. I think it's Penn State. They got the best offense in the Big Ten, a really good defense, even though they haven't really played anybody yet. But that will come later in the season, even tonight still. But for me, Penn State doesn't get the hype that they deserve.
I agree.
They don't get promoted like Michigan because of their brand name, like Ohio State does. But no, Michigan's not there. Like you said, they have a really
I think
young
Wisconsin's
defense.
better chance.
Wisconsin?
I mean, hey, we talked about this because
Wisconsin.
Anyway,
We've got it in the bag.
Yeah.
Hey, you can't talk. You said Waxahachie. It's Waxahachie. Get the stuff right.
That's right.
But
You're
anyway,
from Texas.
God, we were just kidding.
Try not to have the southern
This is
draw.
more talking trash than it is talking about sports.
That's what it's all about.
But yeah, it is.
I mean, like, everyone, we've covered all the points. They don't have a good quarterback, but it still doesn't change the fact that they're really young and they haven't played anybody.
Yeah, it's true.
So,
But if there is one positive thing, they've got a great head coach and one who loves to coach the game of football and who players love to be around. I mean, we saw last season how connected he was with his team, and I mean, he does that with these young guys all the time. So I think that's the one positive Michigan can take from this.
Let's keep going on. Third down, Missouri upsets Auburn.
No.
They need to be more concerned with having more than 20 people in their stadium than beating anybody.
I would agree with that, especially because, first of all, Missouri, I loved it when they were contending for the SEC championship, but now, my goodness, you guys have to figure out how to play some football out there. Yeah. But Auburn, I think Auburn does not really get enough credit. They did not look good against Clemson. I'm going to be really honest. However, when they're on, Jarrett Stidham can play solid football, and I love their running back duo of Cam Petway and Kerryon Johnson when they're both healthy. If they establish themselves in football games, guys, they take over the game. And Cam Petway, for his size and agility, it's so hard to bring him down. If he has a big day today, Missouri has no chance.
Okay, first of all, there were more than 20 people in the stands. There were parents, and there's at least 30 members.
They're all trying very hard.
And there's 30 members in the band. But look, they got absolutely destroyed last week. Did they score, 3 points? Was that what it was? Something like that?
I think so.
Close to how many fans were in the stands. But but nonetheless,
so bad.
I think it's going to happen again today. I think Auburn's going to absolutely dominate this game. There's not much to say about it because it's like you have the bottom half of the SEC versus like a good SEC team, and when you're on the bottom half, you're not good at all. It's like Kentucky. They're just not good. No matter who you play, you're not going to look good. You're going to be an ugly offensive, defensive team, and I think this is just going to be another horrible game.
Real quick, I do want to also throw out a little key here. Jarrett Stidham, I think he's still settling into that Auburn offense, and once he clicks, Auburn will have something they haven't had in a long time, and that's a quarterback who can push the ball down.
He might have that ability to click today because
I think this game could be the platform he needs.
It may be an easy one for Auburn. You know, I think Iowa, like I said, has a better chance to upset Penn State than Missouri even has a chance to do anything against Auburn. I think Auburn. The thing about the SEC, like you just said, if you're at the bottom, you must be pretty bad because you really can't score any points because the top teams in the SEC can't score points. And so if you're at the bottom, you really can't score points, and that's what's going to happen today. I think that Auburn's going to score just enough points with Stidham as their quarterback. It's going to be his day to finally kind of step up, get into Big 12 or SEC play and get things going. I think it's going to be kind of a breeze for Auburn.
All right, last but not least, 4th down, and I think we might have less unanimity here. QB1, Texas Tech, are they back in contention?
Well, I know somebody over there doesn't agree, and I guess I don't either. I don't think just yet. I think he's a good quarterback. It's too early to predict because he hasn't really went up against any good teams yet. I mean, I like the stats that he's putting up, but again, he's against Houston. He's got to gain a little more respect. He's got to once he gets in Big 12 play, that's where we can tell whether or not he's that type of quarterback that can keep up with the other offensive teams in the Big 12. I don't think he's there yet, and I don't think the Texas Tech team.
Here's my take. When you're in the Big 12 and you have zero defense,
that's what I was going to say.
You don't have a chance.
No.
We all know Texas Tech has a great offense. They've always had a good offense.
Yeah.
Patrick Mahomes was one of the best quarterbacks in the country at putting up yards and points.
Yep.
That's inevitable. That hasn't changed. Great, they're putting up more numbers. They have no defense.
Yep.
That's the issue. Let's stop focusing on Texas Tech's offense and what they can do in their quarterback situation and focus on how bad their defensive side of the ball is. How have they not been able to get it fixed at least a little bit?
And you know what else? We praise Texas Tech's offense so much because they can throw the ball all over the park. But one, their defense is terrible. But when's the last time Texas Tech has had a running game? When?
I knew you were saying.
I couldn't name a running back in the last 5 years.
I mean, they cannot establish themselves at the line of scrimmage. And if you can't do that, how are you going to win ball games against big-time teams? I mean, if they go into a game against, per se, Oklahoma, and Oklahoma finds a way to shut down that passing game, what's next? What are you going to do now? Shimonette can't throw the ball if no one's open. So I don't know why we're praising Texas Tech so much. No defense, no running game. It's all about the passing game. And to be quite honest, their offensive line struggles at times as well. Yeah. I don't see it.
Texas Tech's gonna be back to the middle of the road, probably upper middle of the road. I mean, I think there's some teams they can beat, but they're not going to be competing with the OU and the Oklahoma States. Oklahoma's defense is just too good. West Virginia's defense is just too good. I think there's just too much competition. And then TCU, they have a defense as well.
Yep.
So there's 4 teams right there that have a better defense than Texas Tech, and still just as good of offenses.
Yep.
Okay. And that will conclude our national coverage here at Gameday U from Waco, Texas. When we come back, you'll be joined by the in-studio team, and we will begin our OU versus Baylor coverage. Stay with us.
Welcome back to Gameday U. The Sooners' non-conference schedule is over, but they are now headed into Big 12 play. Lincoln Riley talked this week about going into Big 12 play with a 0-0 record mentality.
I think we're trending in the right direction, especially here heading into Big 12 play. Obviously going on the road this week, going down to Baylor to play those guys. This is a good football team, and right now it's a clean slate for everybody. It's the first game of Big 12 play. Everybody's got a lot of hope. Everybody's got a lot of excitement in regards to that. We're no different, and we're going to have to show up down there ready to play. So we're excited to be into the Big 12, excited about the start that this team's had, but now that's off to the side, and our total goal here is getting off to a great start in this conference race. We're 2 0-0 teams right now. I mean, this is Big 12 play, and we're going on the road. We know the challenges that presents, the opportunity it presents for us, and again, we could say all we want about a record, but you turn on the tape, and there's a lot of good football players at Baylor. I know that's a really good coaching staff. They're going to get better quickly, and they already have through these first few games. So we know what kind of game it's going to be down there. It'll be a battle. I haven't honestly watched, other than Baylor now, I haven't watched a lot of the other teams much this year yet. But I think the conference is strong. I think it's going to be a really good year. I mean, you've got. I didn't really even see the new rankings yet, but we had a lot of people ranked going into last week, played a lot of really good games, have played some tough non-conference competition. You got 2 teams I know now. I do know the top 6. I think you got 2 in the top 6 right now. So the conference is strong. There's a lot of really good players, and I think there's a lot of teams that are, that are headed the right direction.
Well, guys, like he was talking about, it's time for Big 12 play. But what do you think we learned about this team in the non-conference games?
Simply put, I think we learned that OU's for real. There's so many questions that they had going into the year with the wide receiving core, the running back core, losing Samaje Perine, losing Joe Mixon, losing D.D. Westbrook. Everyone was wondering, can Baker make do with what he's got? And it's pretty clear he has. He turned Mark Andrews into one of the best tight ends in the country. He brought CeeDee Lamb out of nowhere, and the defense looks brand new. It looks amazing, and I think we learned that OU is a national title contender after all.
Yeah, we learned that OU is for real. We learned that they solidified their defense in the offseason. They got the guys in place that they need to be right where they are. And I think that was obviously the biggest question coming in. Will we be able to slow down some offenses enough to just make OU, make the team look like there can be a team that goes forward and not get stuck behind and fall by the wayside? And then adding the Big 12 title game back this year kind of helps them out as well. So their defense plus the admission of a title game, they're for real, and they're going to move forward, and they should be able to make some waves this year.
Yeah, I think we also realized that Baker is right back in the Heisman race.
And even better than he was last year, if you can
even
believe
better.
that.
It's hard to believe. He's still got that swagger, but he's not forcing throws he's supposed to. Like he sees the wide receiver, he's finding the open pass. When he needs to, he still makes plays out of nothing. That's not something that's just going to disappear. But it's crazy how good he is. It's crazy how much of a leader he is for this offense, and it's unbelievable to watch.
He makes his players a lot better. If you watch the game, he is able to get so much out of all of his guys. And what I love about the wide receiver core, it seems like all the wide receivers on OU, they're very good at knowing that he's a scrambler, and they wait and they find pockets and holes to help him out as well. And just their chemistry right now is better than I could have ever expected with all these new guys, and it's just phenomenal to watch just between Baker and his receivers what they've been able to accomplish so far.
Yeah.
You talk about the wide receiving core surprising. For me, the running backs have really surprised me just because, I mean, you had Joe Mixon, Samaje Perine, two great guys. I thought the run game would take a huge step back, and obviously it's not quite the same, but you got guys like Marcellus Sutton coming out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Trey Sermon really doing great.
Yeah, it's
Rodney
crazy.
Anderson, Abdul Adams. There's all these guys showing up.
It's a great committee.
It's crazy. Trey Sermon leads them in carries. Abdul Adam leads them in yards, and Marcellus Sutton leads them in touchdowns. Like you said, it's a great committee they have.
Everybody works very well together, and they all bring something else to the table. It's like they took one phenomenal running back and broke it into 4 parts, and you're still getting the production that you need to win.
It just feels like there's a different running back for every situation. You had a guy like an Ohio State team, a big physical defense. Trey Sermon matches up well against them.
Overpowering them.
Tulane, a defense that's fast and athletic. You got Abdul Adams, Marcellus Sutton made some
People
big
who
plays.
Make the cuts.
Yeah, exactly. East-west runners and north-south runners. That's what this backfield is composed of.
Great recruiting.
It's crazy. You wonder who the starter is. We don't know. Week to week, it changes.
This team is definitely poised for that Big 12 title, but what about the path to get there?
They've got a tough path ahead. This schedule is hard. They go at Kansas State, at Baylor, at Oklahoma State, and potentially having to play them again in the Big 12 championship should it come to that. I think they benefit from having, honestly, Texas Tech at home. You look at last year, the showdown fun game to watch. Well, I'm not gonna deny that. But the defense just wasn't. It just seemed like under the lights, the defense just collapsed. The offense put up points, but I think that at home the defense would have more confidence. It just seems like the road challenge is going to be very hard. It's going to be interesting to see how they do.
It's a gauntlet this year. A lot of high-powered offenses, a lot of teams that are looking to make a name for themselves and stake their claim on, hey, I'm going to come back and win the Big 12 this year. We finally got a title game again, and there's a lot more at stake, I feel like, this year for the Big 12. And they are going to have to get through very good offenses, and they're going to have to beat Oklahoma State, it looks like, twice, depending on how the Oklahoma State and TCU matchup goes today. So playing against Oklahoma State twice and then just all those other teams in the Big 12 this year is going to be a lot more difficult than we've seen in previous years.
Yeah, but if they do it, I mean, how good is their resume going to look?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at their away games, they play at Kansas, which obviously not a hard game, but they play at Kansas State, at Oklahoma State. Both probably challenging games, especially obviously in Stillwater. But what about these home matchups? We have versus Ohio State, probably a win. Then
versus Ohio State.
Iowa State, excuse me.
Iowa State. That's a little better.
That's
a little better.
But Texas
it's early.
Tech,
we get it. We get it. It's
Texas
early.
Tech, TCU, West Virginia all come here to play in Norman. Do you think any of those games will be big challenges, or do you see OU winning those games easily?
Texas Tech could easily be a barn burner again.
Yeah.
I remember last year, even though the game looked close on paper, it just felt like
It just felt like a loss.
OU, OU, I knew in my mind, I was like, OU's going to score every time they touch the ball, but this isn't a good thing to watch. Their defense looks elementary.
I remember watching the game, and every time they were on defense, I left the room because I knew what was going to happen.
Couldn't even watch.
I just didn't bother. Like I just didn't want.
They shouldn't even put the
myself
defenses
through
out
trouble.
there. Just let both teams practice their offensive plays and just run the scoreboard
Just
up.
run the scoreboard up and just see how high they can go by the time the game ends.
And West Virginia, obviously, a lot of talented players on that roster. They always have a very good offense, and they're very well coached. Dana Holgerson's a great coach.
Yeah.
And they have one of those Elite 11 quarterbacks, Greer. So none of it's going to be easy.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it's just going to make OU look that much better.
I think TCU will be the hardest home matchup personally. I think that
Probably.
Gary Patterson has done such a great job making something out of nothing. They lost a lot of guys.
The last time they were here was a really close and really good
It was
matchup.
too close. I did not like that. I had great seats to watch it all, but
That was a fantastic
the 2-point
game.
conversion I did not watch. I had my head
Stephen
I had my
Parker,
head in my
still a
eyes. I
hero.
refused to look. I just if they cheered, I knew that they didn't get the 2 points.
Another good game 2 years ago when OU went to Waco. Last time they were there. Talk about that game, guys, because that was a good game. I remember that one well. I'm sure you guys do too.
44-34, Baylor's first loss in that arena, first loss of the season.
20-game
20
winning
game win
streak
streak,
going
yeah,
into that
over.
one.
And it really shook them off their game. After that, Baylor dropped 3 games out of their next 4, and they ended up playing in the Russell Athletic Bowl that year. So a team that had title aspirations, they're like, wow, this offense is potent. They might have it all. They might be able to get to that first playoff. That was the first day to the playoff. And they just fell off after that game. I think Sterling Shepard had 2 touchdowns. P. Ryan ran all over the field for 180 yards. Baker threw 3 for 300 yards, and he had 1 pick. But phenomenal game to watch. I mean, we can only hope for a performance like that this year again. I don't think it'll be as good of a game.
I don't think they'll need to play as well, but it was an unreal matchup. It was one of those games where as someone who watches the game and loves the game, it was just so fun to watch. They were just running up the score. The defense stepped up when it had to. Eric Stryker was a force.
That was one of his best games as a student.
It was unbelievable.
It being a later game in November, it felt more important. Even though every game is very important in college football because one loss and you could be done. But it being a later game, you knew as a viewer what was going on and what it meant to the conference and who would be representing the conference later on.
Baylor was so high up. This was the statement win that OU needed to solidify themselves and really put themselves in the college football conversation, the playoff.
Really been all downhill for Baylor since that loss, now that I think about it.
That's a good point, yeah.
They have us to thank for that.
If you look at the stats, because I remember thinking, man, I kind of wish Seth Russell was playing in this game because he had that injury, so he wasn't able to start.
At the same time, Jared Stidham played really well.
Yeah, he did have an overall good game. Baylor had 3 turnovers, but he honestly played pretty well. I don't even think Seth Russell would have made that much of a difference.
No, especially in that pro-style offense where you get out and you spread the field. You have guys that can come in, you know what they're capable of. That's why you recruited them. So just throw the ball down the field, up the field, spread the ball.
It's easy for a quarterback to succeed in that system because there's so many weapons. There's weapons everywhere at the wide receiver position, at the running back position. All they have to do is just find the right guy, and they can make something out of nothing.
And Stidham I feel like Auburn thought they were getting a much better player.
I
think the offense makes a quarterback in a lot of different ways, and he's not been that great at Auburn yet.
I feel like Stidham is a great Big 12 quarterback. There's no denying that because he can throw the ball all day long. I feel like he doesn't fit in the SEC. It might be weird, but it just doesn't seem like he fits in that physical big boy style, run it in the trenches. Quarterback has to step up when he needs to, but that's not what they need. He doesn't seem like the same guy, honestly.
Yeah, I can see that. All right, well, we're going to toss to another break, but when we come back, the guys will be in Waco.
Welcome back to Gameday U. OU's offense has been one of the best in the country to date, knocking off solid teams such as Ohio State with so many weapons and so many people that can do damage with the ball. They're starting conference play this week, and we're looking to see what they can do. Here's what the team had to say as they begin their season in the Big 12.
We just got to keep getting better, and the focus will be on the fact this is the first Big 12 game. And so, yeah, we have national title aspirations, but the first goal or the first step to getting there is the Big 12. So that's the first challenge for us for us going into this, conference run. So we got to take care of business. I think a big thing for us is establishing our run game on a consistent basis. So I think we'll be hammering on the head to be physical and be competitive this week. And the fact that we haven't arrived yet.
And there's a ton of depth here, and a ton of guys that are explosive and can make plays. And we're relying on everybody. Everyone's got a chance to play, and a lot of people have stepped up. So it's huge. It's huge for this receiving corps to show people and to show that that we can make the plays when the time comes.
I feel like anytime running backs, they get that feel for the game whenever they get in. So I mean, a couple toes, they should start getting into it, getting into the motions. But I feel like Coach Riley they doing a good job. They know what they're doing upstairs. So I'm good with where I'm at right now.
I'm good either way. I got asked about that earlier. However it ends up playing out, it doesn't. I really don't care. As long as we're getting the production. If we have some guys go down, or if we have a couple of guys that step up and separate themselves, and yes, the reps will start to narrow down a little bit. But right now, those guys are all playing well. They're all progressing. We're using all of them on special teams in different areas, and they're doing a good job there too. So I don't know that I would sit there and say that I want it to go one direction or not. I think it's something that, as the season unfolds, we're just going to let play out.
That's the idea. They've got a good offense. They've got weapons. They've got plenty of players that can do damage on the field, but they don't have certainty when it comes to who is the #1 guy in all aspects, especially at the running back position. We've seen the depth charge, or. There's no one guy. So this game, it's in Baylor, right behind us, McLean Stadium. Do you guys think there is going to be a running back that emerges as the starting running back?
Well, we talked to Lincoln Riley Monday, and he said that he didn't care. Honestly, he didn't care if it was Rodney Henderson or anybody. He just likes the production that he's getting, and I don't know who it's going to be, honestly. I think it's just week by week running back steps up. I think we might see Sutton have another big game. Abdul had a really good game yardage-wise last week, but didn't get in the end zone, if I'm not mistaken. But I don't know, honestly. That's just my key for this. I honestly don't know.
Here's my thing. You don't need a guy.
I
agree. Think this team has so much depth at running back. Sutton had a good game last week.
Yes.
Trey Sermon had a great game in Columbus at Ohio State. Abdul Adams has had his big moments. Rodney Anderson has had his big moments. I don't think you need to narrow in on one guy. I think Trey Sermon's been probably overall collectively the best of the 4 so far. I think he's been the most consistent. He really turns it on when the lights are shining on him. But I think they have 4 guys who can all do big things. And we saw last week, Marcellus Sutton had a great game against Tulane. And so right now, I guess he's at the top of the depth chart. But I don't know if you can really, zero in on one guy right now. But I think Trey Sermon all around kind of leads the race.
I agree with you, and there's no need to key in on just one guy, especially when all of these running backs are so situational, in my opinion. You talk about what they bring to the table. Sutton is more of a quick, agile, one-cut kind of guy. Abdul Adams is great out of the backfield in the receiving game. Then Rodney Anderson, obviously, the big fella, can pound it in and show yardage situations. Trey Sermon's probably the most complete out of all the backs, but at the same time, he's going to get tired, and then that brings in this rotation of different abilities. At the end of the day, you don't need that one guy because you have so many guys that can do so many different things.
You're having fresh legs all the time.
Exactly.
The only thing that scares me about this for the Sooner offense is what happens when you get in crunch time and you have to slow the game down. You have to manage the clock. You just want to take time off the clock. If you don't, I don't feel like if you don't have that set running back, you're able to do that.
And I would agree with you.
So that would be my biggest concern if I'm a coach for OU, if I'm a fan of OU, is who do we go to if we have to slow the game down and just let the
But I think it makes it so tough for defenses because if you can't game plan around 1, maybe 2 guys. I mean, last year it was Joe Mixon, Samaje Perine. They zeroed in on those 2 guys. That was the focus.
Yes.
Well, this year, the opposing team has 4 guys to zero in on. You know how much that helps Baker Mayfield in the passing game? Because there's a lot of this focus on how do you stop a run game which has 4 guys who could all be the starter. Baker Mayfield's like having a heyday.
And I will agree with you, though, Nike. There is a little bit of a hazard when it comes to that situation because a little bit of the running back position is the degree settling in, getting into a groove.
Yes.
And when you're rotating guys, especially late in ball games where you really have to consistently move the ball, keep the thing going, it's tough for those guys to settle in and keep that ball moving forward. However, I do like where they're at the running back position right now, and they don't have to settle it in this game. I think you can just keep this.
Not
thing
in this game, and like the old saying goes, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Right.
And right now, it's not broke, so you don't have to fix anything. It's just like in the wide receiving game. Nobody knows how to game plan because they don't know which wide receiver they're gonna use.
Yeah.
So I mean, right at this moment, I'm not concerned, and I don't think you should, as an OU fan, be concerned. But if you start playing bigger teams like Oklahoma State and you don't want their offense on the field, you're gonna have to have a setback.
If you want to call it a problem, they don't have one guy. I'll tell you what, it's a good problem to have.
Yeah,
because
really
I'd rather have multiple guys who can do the same job than not have enough.
Like
so
offensive line.
They do, exactly.
That's fair, and that doesn't just include the running back spot. That's the receiving core in general. And last week, CeeDee Lamb got sent off a little early because of an offensive targeting that was, albeit questionable, but we won't get into that. He can play this game. And do you think he's going to continue to shine? Because last week, he had 131 yards in the first half before being sent off, so that's incredible.
Well, he had that, and he had 2 touchdowns, and one was for 80-plus yards, if I recall correctly. But I mean, I think he's going to have a big game. I think he's going to have multiple big games. But I think today, especially, this Baylor defense, especially the secondary, is atrocious. They're not good at all. I hope that was a good word for you.
All right, Steve.
Yeah, I know. Sorry. I'm trying to bring my personality out. But CeeDee Lamb, I think he has a huge game today. I think I see no less than 120, 130 yards, at least 1 touchdown. I see him having at least a touchdown within the first 2 possessions. I see Baker going to him.
The thing about CeeDee is he doesn't play like a freshman.
No.
He's a guy that Baker can already rely on. He has a lot of confidence in CeeDee Lamb, and that showed last week in the first half of him playing in the football game. Baker always is going to look for CeeDee. CeeDee's most of the time always open, as we saw last week on that long touchdown at the beginning of the game. That is key for this offense because a lot of the question coming into the season was who was going to be the guy in the receiving corps. We all knew that OU had plenty of guys in the backfield that could step up and replace Joe Mixon and Samaje Perine. Maybe not to this level that we were seeing so far, but I think the biggest question was how do you replace a guy like Dede Westbrook? And while CeeDee Lamb, I don't want to compare him to Dede Westbrook.
No.
He's having those tendencies right now where he's kind of turning out to be the guy that's always open, the guy that Baker can always go to, and that is huge for this team. And to put up the numbers that he's doing right now, that is big. He's a guy who can make hard or tough catches, but he's also quick, and that's huge for this offense.
Guys, I'm going to tell you why this kid's going to continue to shine, because we talk so much about this receiving core being so surrounded with question marks because there isn't a true go-to guy. But that is why guys like CeeDee Lamb, as we're talking about, but also guys like Mark Andrews, Jeff Badette, are having such big games because no one is being keyed in on the offensive side of the ball. And as long as that continues, as long as single coverage is an option for these receivers, especially CeeDee Lamb, he's going to be able to settle into this game and start developing into the true stud that he's going to be at the receiver position. As long as this thing keeps going, and as long as the defense cannot key in on just him because there are so many different receivers that can catch the football, he's going to have the opportunity to just settle in and keep having these big games. And next thing you know, he's going to be one of the better receivers that OU's had in a while.
Okay, that's fair enough. And it's a pretty good time for OU football games if you're Kyler Murray, Joe Castiglione Jr. And,
I don't know about
even though
I
he
don't know
fumbled the ball.
about him. He got his first handoff last week and did not take advantage of it.
Ball
He got
security is job security.
blasted, and that is exactly what happened. First handoff, all they had 13 seconds left on the clock.
Hold on to the ball.
And he just gets plowed and loses the ball to the other team.
Oh, well.
I mean, how
Really
bad
call
of a
out
start
Joe
Speed of the
to your
game.
career can you have?
Speed of the
Sorry
game.
about that.
Anyway, besides the point there, he got to play.
Yeah, he did.
Kyler got to play. These players are getting to play because besides Ohio State, the games have relatively been blowouts. So this game, we know what Baylor's been doing. They're 0-3. They haven't looked good. They've lost to some very bad teams.
Yeah.
How long do you think the starters tonight are going to get to play?
Well, I think it's a pretty easy answer here. As long as Baylor's being able to be competitive within this football game.
You took the easy answer.
It's an easy.
That's like
easy.
obvious.
Yeah,
Yes.
I'm gonna,
so
if you want a timetable, I'm going to say we could see some backups at the end of halftime. But
Okay, that's the answer we expected.
Again,
however, I want to say this. This could be a situation where if you overlook this Baylor football team, then we may not see the backups at all. because if you overlook them, and next thing you know, they start putting points up on the board and they start playing competitive because they want to win this football game. This is the win that could turn things around for Matt Rule and the Baylor Bears. As long as Baylor's being able to be competitive, and if they overlook them, we may not see the backups much, if at all. But I would say if OU does what they can do, could see them by halftime.
I think this is going to be one of those games where they're not going to go out for a while. I think it's Big 12 play. Conference play, you kind of just throw things out the window. Anything can happen.
Exactly.
And playing here in Waco, Baylor has started the season 0-3. They're fighting for everything right now.
And we overlook this home field advantage.
They would love to beat OU, the #3 team in the nation, at home. I mean, that would literally erase all the the bad talk about Baylor right now. Maybe not all of it, but at least quite a bit of it to knock off the #3 team to start Big 12 play. You're 1-3 heading into your 5th week of the season. But it's a huge game for them. I don't think they're just going to lay down. I think Oklahoma is going to have to play a complete game, not just a half like we've seen. I think it's going to be more one of those games, kind of like an Ohio State, where it was close, and OU will eventually run away with it.
Look, Baylor's a desperate football team right now. When you have a desperate football team, they're going to come out and give it their all. I don't even think that's going to matter. I'm disagreeing with both of you. I think they're out after the third quarter. I think, I'm pushing third quarter because I think the game's going to be over by midway third quarter. But I think Lincoln Riley, because it's Big 12 play, is going to want to leave a statement. So I think he's going to lead them in a little longer than he should, just to show, one, Joey Galloway shouldn't have picked Baylor to win the Big 12, and two, because there's just a lot of history in the past couple of years between these two programs, and I think he's going to want to come out and make a statement to every team in the Big 12. This is who we are. This is what we're going to do to pretty much everybody that comes in our path, and it's starting with the Baylor
Joey Galloway should just not speak.
He told a commentator
all right,
the other day.
I just want to run a quick question just for laughs and giggles. Yes or no, that's all you have to say. Does J.C. Jr. get another snap?
No. Not anytime soon. Not anytime.
One and done.
And like they said, it is Big 12 play, so it is a completely different ball game. Things start to matter more, and it's a different year. It's a new year. It's the first Big 12 matchup for Lincoln Riley as the head coach, and as they play the spread offenses of the Big 12, they've got a lot to look forward to in the coming weeks. Here's what the defensive coaches and players have to say about their upcoming 9-week stretch.
Our players are, they're excited about playing a conference game, going on the road, and understanding, what it takes to win, and so it's been good. The first 2 days are a lot different than it was a week ago. You got to be able to cover people. There's, again, there's only so much help available to your secondary the way the game is stretched, and trying to be able to still, attack the run game and be good in the secondary. So, the better cover guys you have, the better your opportunities are going to be, and the more aggressive you can be.
Like I said, this is a 2017 football season, and this is what we're, looking into. We're a brand new team, and basically, this is another conference that we got to go through again, and I feel like we're going to prepare the right way. We're going to take it a day at a time, take it a game at a time.
Yeah, of course. I mean, that's something that we've been beat up about in the past. Our secondary wasn't good enough. Our secondary is the reason we lose or win games, and and so on and so forth. So it's a statement for us. We're trying to keep the ball rolling, and granted, we're not going to be perfect, and then some bad things are going to happen. But at the same time, we want to keep that all to a minimum. I mean, they are what they've always been. A lot of athletes all over the field, a lot of great players all over the field. You got great wide receivers and a quarterback, but they got two quarterbacks. Both of them can hurt you on the ground and in the air. So it'll be a game of just competitiveness, and it's all about preparation for us. I feel like if we go out and we prepare and we play the ball and we play the game that we know how to play, I feel like everything will work out in our favor.
Beginning of the season, the big news that we see, it's actually spring game, is the switch to how they're going to play defense. And I guess that was a big deal, but right now we didn't get to see that against their non-conference matchups. OU is preparing to play spread offenses now, and I just want your general opinions, thoughts on how this defense is going to fare after just essentially being revamped from last year.
I think they might struggle a little bit early on like they have, because they haven't faced an offense like this even remotely close. Ohio State wasn't close. UTEP or Tulane, none of them run a similar offense to what most teams in the Big 12 run. And so I think for the first maybe 10 minutes of the game. They're going to have to make some adjustments. But I think the reason they switched to 4-3 was to get pressure on the quarterback, and the D-line's going to do just that, and it's going to help the secondary out because the secondary is going to need a little bit of help. Even though they haven't allowed a touchdown all season, hopefully they don't do it today either. But nonetheless, they're going to struggle a little bit, but I think they're prepared for this spread defense.
I think, yeah. Last year, we were all concerned. This year, I think that with the focus they put on getting to the quarterback, pushing to that 4-3 defense, and the way Owo is playing, the way the pressure of that front four with Neville Gallimore and Matt Romer and guys like that, that's going to be huge for the passing game. Big 12 teams will spread you out and make a lot of long passes, light up the scoreboard, put up a lot of yards. But when you have the ability to get to the quarterback and what OU has been able to do, I think that really helps out the secondary. And as good as the secondary is playing right now, I mean, they're lights out right now. I mean, Jordan Thomas and Parnell Motley are shut down corners right now. And then you have Stephen Parker in the back end. I think that's a solid recipe for success when you have such good pressure from the front four.
And we talk about this switch to the quote-unquote 4-3, but Mike Stoops brought it out after the Ohio State game. It's not a true 4-3 system. It's a multiple scheme where they move around to these outside linebackers, defensive tackles, defensive ends, and it gives offenses problems because you have to make these line calls initially, and when there's motions, there's movement, it's hard to call on that. And I love the blitz packages and the timing of these blitz packages they're bringing in. Emmanuel Beal, that guy is looking good so far for the Sooners, and I think this is going to be a big game for him because he's been facing these offenses that are more run-based. And now, as the leader currently of that linebacking core, he's going to have to step up against this pass offense. It's going to be a big day for him and those linebackers in the middle. Kenneth Murray, too. Got to keep an eye on him.
The thing is both parts of this defense complement one another. The pass rush gets to the quarterback very often, which helps the secondary not have to cover that long. But this secondary can actually cover for 3 to 5 seconds. So when you have both, when your secondary gives your D-line time to get to the quarterback and when your D-line actually gets to the quarterback, it's really complementary.
And then you add a athletic and physical set of linebackers, Emmanuel Beal, Kenneth Murray, and Caleb Kelly, guys who can all cover, bring the wood, and get to the quarterback. That is huge, and that's why they've had so much success because all three parts are working right now, and when all three parts are working is why they have not giving up a passing touchdown.
Okay, let's focus on something then. You brought this up. We've been talking about them, but specifically Neville Gallimore.
Whew.
Okay, he's having himself a year, leading tackles last
menace.
Week. So, menace. Is that the word you want to use?
I think he's been a menace. I think he's a guy who, he reminds me of, I'm trying to think of a guy that I could compare him to. Maybe a Jordan Phillips.
I was about to say, if you're going to go to a Gerald McCoy, that would be a stretch.
No. I see more of a Jordan Phillips, a bigger guy, but who has that athletic ability to get to the quarterback, and he has done just that. He is loving this 4-3, even though it's not a true 4-3 system. I think that he is loving what he can do up front, and he's been huge. I mean, he's a big guy, and for him to do what he does is amazing. That's helping the secondary so much. I mean, you talk to the secondary guys, they will all say that they give praise to that front four because their ability to get to the quarterback has helped them so much. And the offensive line has to go against them in practice, and they've said now Neville Gallimore has just been giving them fits.
And you know, how many times have we seen Neville Gallimore make plays not on the true defensive line, at the line of scrimmage? He's flying all over the football field. Sideline to sideline, he's making plays. When a screen is dumped out to the sideline, somehow he's there. And he's over 300 pounds. It's amazing what this guy brings to the table, and I love that he is impacting the game so much in the middle of that defense because it's hard, especially when you're playing defensive tackle. So many guards, so many centers, all up in your face, and for you to have the impact like that, I love what Neville Gallimore is bringing to the game.
Exactly, and the passing game, he gets pressure on the quarterback, but the run game, that's where he really thrives. When they try to hit that gap right next to him, there isn't one.
That's a wall.
It's a wall.
It's a refrigerator.
Exactly, and they hit it, and they just somehow can't move forward at all. And he's so big. He's such a huge guy.
But such an athlete.
And he's so physical, and he's such an athlete. You mentioned how much he runs sideline to sideline. Obo does that as well. And that's what makes this entire D-line scared, that they're all aggressive. They're very aggressive. They're very assertive, and they're very athletic. I guess that's just the quote.
Ruffin McNeil is the answer. I mean, I think him coming in here has done a great job of getting Oklahoma back to being physical, back to being a tough front seven, back to a defense who's going to punch you in the mouth.
And Neville Gallimore does just that.
Exactly.
And if you think that he's done this so well, and I know that we're not going to compare Neville Gallimore to Gerald McCoy, But
we might.
The sentiment stands. How good is this defense? When has OU's defense been this good? When was the last time?
I'm gonna go to one of my favorite defenses from a while back. The Sharks.
His
baby.
old haircut.
I'm going back to the Sharks. 2011. The shark fin for me is gone, but the Sharks are still roaming around out there on that field. They may not be playing the Jaws theme song on third down, but they are dominating at the line of scrimmage. They are covering receivers very well. I love what this defense brings to the table, and it's reminding me of one of my favorite defenses the Sooners brought to the table. Features guys, like you'll mention here in a little bit, that I thought were some of the best defensive players Oklahoma had in a long while.
This brings me to my point. I loved this defense. Back in the days when you had Travis Lewis, Tom Moore, Jamel Fleming, Tony Jefferson, and Aaron Colvin, talk about lights out. I still think back to that year when Travis Lewis put the OU Texas hat, the golden hat on the bench when they were just blowing them out, 63 to 20 something. That will always be in my memory because that defense was just so good. Their ability to get turnovers was phenomenal.
And they were so aggressive.
And that's what this team is. Yeah, exactly. They're a physical but also an aggressive defense. They're a team that's going to get at you rather than have the team come to you and then you stop them. So I think that was huge. I think this defense is back to that same type of level where they can get to the quarterback but play aggressive in the secondary.
You know, I'm going to go a little bit further back to when they were national championship contenders, and that was in 2004 when Rufus Alexander, Garrett Allen, Dante Nicholson, and Rodney Poole were there. That's when Big 12 play actually mattered. In 2011, 2012, it wasn't the #1 conference. In 2004, the Big 12 was the top conference. It was true football. It was smash mouth, I'm going to get in your face, and you can't do anything about it type football. And those guys were very physical, were very tough, and I believe all of them, except for maybe one, went to the NFL.
Rufus Alexander was fun to watch.
He was an amazing athlete. He was a great linebacker. They had great linebackers, great D linemen, and their secondary was incredible as well. And so that type of defense reminds me of this defense because they were so physical, and they didn't care about if they talked trash to somebody or hurt somebody's feelings or knocked somebody out. They were fine with it. They were playing to take you out, and they were playing to put a butt whooping on you, pretty much.
Okay, so let's talk about OU's defense right now. The big question isn't so much as what is their talent level. It's more so, is it sustainable?
I believe so.
I think it is.
Right now, they're 30th overall. I'd predicted 25th in overall defense.
I think today is the first real test. As we said, they play in the Big 12. They spread you out. OU has not faced anybody like that. That's probably why they have not given up a passing touchdown yet. So I think that today against a Baylor team who may be 0-3 but still runs that same type of offense, I think if they can stop Baylor here in Waco from passing the ball all over them, this will be a good gauge to see where they're at.
I do want to make a point, though, for Baylor being a very, I guess like that's like their selling point right now, but they still have plenty of turnovers, 7 to date. So I could honestly see the secondary coming in and having a really good game against this team. So
they have to get to a point where they can beat teams like this who can spread you out, because in about a little over a month, they take on Oklahoma State. And that's kind of their big game where it's really going to be tested. And I think that they need to get it figured out now if they can actually stop a team like this before they head into Stillwater.
I think if they have a big game tonight, defensively, that sets the tone for the Big 12 play. And yeah, they spread you out, but Baylor's not the best at it. Honestly, I think practicing against OU's offense is more fulfilling than going against Baylor's offense tonight, honestly. But sorry if I'm being very crucial, but
you made it very clear that you don't see much.
Yeah, I don't see much from Baylor. I don't think they're that good offensively. They haven't played. They lost to. They're 0-3, and none of them are to football schools. Even though, like we've said, all week now, Duke looked like a football school. But I think this defense is just too good, and I think although they haven't faced a spread offense, it doesn't matter tonight. I really don't think it does.
I agree with that. I don't think you can tell very much for that, but I guess we'll just have to find out today and the coming weeks, especially since OSU is coming up. But that will conclude our coverage for OU football. We're going to throw it back to the in-studio team led by Madeline Roberts for an in-depth analysis on Baylor's game style. Stay with us.
Welcome back to Game Day U. It is time for the studio team's final segment. We're going to jump into our national call-out. Sam, who's your national call-out?
My national call-out is Mr. Mason Rudolph. We haven't seen much of him so far this year, but this is his first big test of the season. I want to see what he does. He is a Heisman caliber quarterback. We all know that. He's putting up the stats, 11 touchdowns, 1 pick. It's all impressive, but we don't know how he's going to do against a good TCU defense. He's played Pitt, South Alabama, and Tulsa. So 54 points is easy, but I want to see how you do in the big stage under the bright lights against TCU and that very tough TCU defense.
All right. I am going to travel over to the SEC for my call out. The Commodores of Vanderbilt, I want you to beat Alabama. I want you to stun them, take down the regular season giant that has staked their claim in college football for the past decade, and just go in there and surprise them, shock the world, take down the #1, let OU reach #1 next week. So go get that W.
All right, Sam touched on my call out a little bit, but I'm going to call out the Oklahoma State Cowboys as a whole. The team Mason Rudolph is the quarterback of. I want Oklahoma State to be really good this year. I mean, they've looked really good. They're #6 in the nation right now. I want Bedlam to be top 6, even top 5 possibly matchup. It's good for the Big 12. It's good for Oklahoma. It's good for the national football race overall. If one of those 2 teams can get into the playoff, win this game today, do good in the Big 12. Sam, OU call out.
OU call out. I feel like we're all going to stick to the defensive side today, but I'll go and start it off. I'm calling out the rush defense. Guys, we have seen too many starts where you allow big gaps through the middle, opening drives for 7 points. We saw it against UTEP. We saw it against Tulane. We saw it at the start of the second half against Ohio State. Just big gaps up the middle. We need you guys to shut that down. Terrence Williams is available today, and they plan on using him. He's a big weapon. He can bust out for yards. He ran for over 1,000 yards last year, and Matt Rule is going to be using him to relieve Zach Smith, pressure off of Zach Smith, the backup for Anu Solomon. The rush defense needs to step up. Neville Gallimore needs to be a beast in the trenches. I need to see more of Caleb Kelly. I need to see more of Kenneth Murray.
I am actually going to stay on the offensive side of the ball. CeeDee Lamb, you got ejected in the second half last week after a very impressive first half. I want to see how you bounce back from getting ejected from a game. I want to see if you can continue to put up similar numbers that you've been impressing everybody with so far this season. CeeDee Lamb, go out, score a few touchdowns, show everybody that the getting kicked out of the game did not affect you in any way. Have a good bounce back game.
Moving over to the defensive side of the ball, I'm going to call out.
Moving back to the defensive side of the ball.
I'm going to call out OU's secondary. You've impressed me a lot so far this year. Last year wasn't so good. This year you've been pretty good, but I don't want to see another one of those slow starts, especially against a Baylor team that, even though they're 0-3, they have put up a lot of points and they have a lot of good wide receivers. So the secondary, you guys need to be ready to be on those guys just to make some big plays in this game. And just moving forward, be ready for the Big 12 teams that obviously put up a lot of points, and you've got to play some good defense if you want to win those games. All right, guys, moving on to our final word. Sam, what's your final word?
My final word is jump. And by jump, I mean jump to a hot start. Like Madeline touched on, we've seen too many slow starts so far this year. Being tied with Tulane after 1 quarter is unacceptable. Like Madeline said, Baylor is 0-3, but they are still a Big 12 offense. Zach Smith is still a decent quarterback, and they can still put up big points on the board, especially with Terrence Williams, like I said, back in the lineup. You guys need to get off to a good start. The offense needs to produce like they always have, but I'm looking at the defense to shut down, get them out early, and let's get this game over with.
My final word is balance. Put together a balanced performance, offense, defense, special teams, all aspects of the game, play it well, balance your game, go get the win.
Nice, easy, simple. My final word is composed. I'm thinking this team, they're only going to beat themselves. From what I've seen, there's not a team that can really contend with their offense. So, in my opinion, this team has to stay composed, but if they do that, they can win. They're composed on offense, on defense, looking out to not turn the ball over, not making any mistakes. They can win any game they want to win, so stay composed.
Yeah, Waco's a tough place to play. So.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's a tough environment. McLean Stadium is still going to be packed.
Definitely. All right, guys. Last but not least, your final score predictions for this game. Whoever's right, I'll give you $1,000. Not really.
I need it.
You should try to be right.
Tuition isn't cheap here. My first score prediction now is actually pretty close for the UTEP game.
Humble brag.
I'm not. It's a shameless plug. I'm going to go 45 for OU and 13 for Baylor. I think OU will allow 7 points in the first quarter. You'll see them score 14 or 21 right off the bat. I mean, I've thought about this all week because Baylor can still put up points, but I do think this defense will show out. Mike Stoops is not going to let this team underperform, and you'll see him allow a touchdown on the first drive just because I feel like that's their theme this year. And you'll see him get shut down in the second half. The offense will continue to put up points as always. 45-13 final score. Baker with 4 more touchdowns.
My final score is going to be 45-10. So
a little close.
Offensive side, same. Yeah, 45.
Stop copying me.
Yeah, I didn't mean to, man. I'm really sorry. But 45-10. Baylor doesn't get quite as many points as Sam thought they were going to have. Lost a field goal for me. 45-10. A lot of offensive firepower. Baker throws for a mile, and the defense steps it up against a high-powered Big 12 offense and makes it look embarrassing. 45-10.
I think the game's going to be a little more high-scoring, kind of your typical Big 12 game. Not a shootout exactly, but I'm going to go OU 52, Baylor 17. I think, like you mentioned, Sam, OU might give up a few points at the beginning of the game, or maybe at the end if their backups come into the game. Yeah. But I do see them putting up a lot of points on this Baylor team who's given up a ton of points in their preseason so far. So that's what I have for the final score of this game.
Who do you think the leading rusher is going to be today?
I don't know. I could see a bunch of different guys being the leading rusher.
I'm going to go Adams.
You're going to go Adams? I'm going to say Sutton.
I'll go with Sermon.
Just because, just to switch it up. Just because Baylor's defense is so athletic, it just seems like
should be an interesting game for sure.
Yeah,
I mean, if you think about it this way, out of the 3 teams that have played Baylor so far and how many points they were able to score, theoretically, OU should put up about 300 this week, just with how much skill they have.
Just based on the Liberty game.
Just based on what we've seen. I mean,
Duke put up enough to look at one of their basketball scores. So
that's true.
Yeah, they made Duke look like a football school, and that's impressive. It's something only Baylor can do, honestly, at this point of the year.
All right, well, that is it from us in the studio, but stick around because our guys from Waco will have the last segment of the show today.
Thank you, Madeline and company, for the last segment. But it's time to conclude things, time to end things off with what we always do.
Favorite part of the show.
Oh,
sun is coming up right in our eyes.
You can see,
Gotta
we can barely see, but you can see us, so that's the good thing.
That's all that matters.
All right, so let's go ahead and get things going. Kenneth, national call out.
Oh yeah, I'm calling out the show that it has our name without the U behind it. Game Day. Why are you in New York City? I don't get it. Why there's no football team there? Nobody cares about football there. Oh wait, that's right. You're there because one, you need help with ratings. That's right. That's your problem. That's why they're over there. Second reason, they show a lack of respect for the Big 12. You have the biggest game here, top 20 matchup, and you're not in Oklahoma? Why not? Oh, okay, because you won't bet them. That's your excuse. No, forget that. You should be in Oklahoma right now at the Oklahoma State TCU game, and the fact that they're not absolutely just upsets me. I'm very upset. I can't say any more words besides upset because I'm very upset.
Are you upset?
Yeah,
I'm very upset.
That's a bad excuse that they're going to go to Bedlam. They go to like 6 Bama games a year.
Yeah, I know, it's a horrible excuse.
Like every other week they're going to whoever Bama's playing, even if it was like probably Murray State.
Nobody cares about college football in New York. There's not a good team up there. Yeah, why are you there?
What does Lee Corso do for his
I was thinking that the other day. Like, what is he going to pick? I don't get it.
That's a good question.
Maybe he'll wear a little Statue of Liberty type crown.
That's possible.
Maybe
that's
he'll hold up a candle or something.
All right.
I don't know.
Mine is Nebraska. What is going on? Y'all are so bad. Your biggest mistake was leaving the Big 12. The Big 12 or Big 10 has done nothing for you guys, and now you start the season this bad, lose in Northern Illinois, and then fire your AD after he makes comments about how you aren't competitive. Shouldn't you want your AD to care enough to make a comment like that? I love that personally. I love when an AD or a head coach is honest, is brutally honest, and he did that. Fire your coach, but don't fire your AD. He's coming out and saying he's fed up with it, but you fire the guy who's actually fed up with it? That's just not okay. I think Nebraska needs to head back to the Big 12. I don't know how it's going to happen, but somehow get back there. I miss the OU-Nebraska games. I'm just saying.
My national call out, I pick on this guy a lot, but I think it's well deserved. Mr. Mason Rudolph, you're playing a pretty big game today, and here's the thing. A lot of people are wanting you to be a Heisman Trophy candidate now. but you haven't done anything, in my opinion. You haven't played a top-notch defense. You need to go out there and prove it today. TCU will be a test. And Gary Patterson, let me tell you something, he's going to have a plan today. And Pitt is your big competition. Pitt, at that time, was the 80th worst defense in the country as unpassing. Yeah, I'm pretty upset.
Would you
just
say
like
he's a day 3 guy?
Day 3 guy, like they were saying?
Yeah,
I don't know.
that?
But here's what I'm going to say. Mason, if you're going to go out there and you're going to prove the fact that you deserve all this hype, you're going to have to do it today. And I want to see it because I'm a little skeptical.
All right, my national call-out will be USC and the Pac-12. We touched on this in the beginning of the show, but it really matters. All the people who said the Big 12 was the worst conference of the Power 5 has not seen USC, Washington, or let alone anyone in that conference play. They're bad. Just get used to it. It's true. It's a fact. And we're just going to move on. I don't really have to say much else. They're really, really bad. They're overrated. They're still in the top 5 because they got started there.
I agree with you.
But we're all upset, and he's so much. They're bad.
I'm the same.
They're bad.
We know. There's no reason to get worked up because I think America knows that
he's a man. He's 20.
Yeah.
Say what he wants.
All right. Let's go ahead. Kenneth, OU call out.
Mine, it's not really I'm upset at all. It's the secondary. Just have another good game. You played well all season, obviously. The statistics show that. Parnell Motley, I need you to get another interception. I need Jordan Thomas, don't fall asleep. I called you out last week, don't fall asleep today. Stephen Parker, be the leader you are. And have a good game. That's all I have to say.
Mine has to be Jeff Mead. We have all called him out at least once this season.
At least someone on the crew has called him out. So every show, Jeff Mead's name has been in the segment.
You had so much hype coming into the season about being the guy, the senior, the guy who can catch the ball so well. And yes, the ball has not come your way very often. Yes, there's been some questionable calls on penalties that have inhibited you from catching the football. Yes, you've been overthrown. Yes, you've been underthrown. But the balls you've had your hands on, you haven't been able to bring in, and that is key. You need to be a guy. You need to be the leader for this receiving corps. You have a lot of young guys, and they're just making you look bad. It's time. We're gonna keep calling you out until things actually change. I think you're a very good player. I think you have some of the best hands on the football team. But why aren't we seeing it? Why is it not happening? It takes Kyler Murray to come into the game for you to get any action.
My OU call, Kenny, I'm kind of like you. I don't have a beef with this guy. I just want to see him go out and prove it again today. Mr. Trey Sermon, the young freshman out of Georgia, I love what he did in Ohio State. Love what he did. But then Abdul Adams and Marcellus Sutton had a pretty big game last week. Well, now this young man has to go out and prove that he earned that #1 running back spot when he had that awesome performance in that big stage in Columbus. Go out there, start a Big 12 play, and establish yourself as the go-to guy at the running back position because you have all the tools. You are the most complete back on the roster, in my opinion. Just go out there and prove it today.
Okay, and my OU call out, I will be the second to say the secondary, but I don't have a beef with him either. I just really want to call him out. Hey.
Hey, now he has beef.
Anyway, all right.
Yeah, now I got beef.
The thing is, look, they're a team that turns the ball over a lot. Prove yourself tonight. That's all that matters. We'll keep going. We'll power through these last 2 bits. So final word, lead us off.
From my favorite football movie of all time. It's 2 words, but I'm going to use it anyway.
Final word.
No doubt. Hey, I asked our producer. He said it was fine.
Leave final word.
No
Come on, man.
doubt. No doubt, no doubt.
We're bending rules today. It's
yes,
okay.
we are. You are going into the first Big 12 matchup of the season for you guys.
Yep.
All right.
Prove that you're the top dog in the Big 12. Prove that Baylor is what they've shown the first 3 games, and that's absolute trash. Leave no doubt that you are the #1 team and that you actually deserve to be top 2 in the country, not top 3 like you were pushed down after, what, a week ago?
Okay.
Yeah, so
let's keep going.
Leave no doubt.
Ready?
Is that your call out or your final word? That was heated.
It was both. I know.
Mine has to be trap. When you come into conference play in a rivalry game like this, these teams have really turned into a rivalry, I believe. I think that trap is a big word. You know, Baylor's 0-3 coming into this game. You cannot overlook them. This is a game that OU can come into and not play up to the level they should play at and end up getting beat. It's dangerous. It's very dangerous. I still think OU's going to, pull away, but I think that this is a game you have to just kind of be careful because, again, it's a Big 12 game. It's a conference game. Those have a recipe for kind of the upset.
45 seconds.
My final word, sick them. Sooners go out there, sick of the Bears, beat them in a big
That's
way.
2 words as well. Gosh, come on, guys.
People here think it's 1 word.
That's
what I'm going to say.
My word's going to be routine. Just get in the habit of winning. It's been a while since OU has controlled their own destiny, and they're doing it now. And like I said, 45 seconds. Ball starts when the chains move. Kenneth, lead us off. OU score prediction.
OU 52, Baylor 24. Those extra 14 points Baylor gets with give me points at the end of the game.
Mine's OU 52, Baylor 28. I think this is going to be a close game for the first half. I think OU eventually will pull away after they make those second half adjustments. It's going to be a big win for the Sooners, and they'll be 4-0 heading into a bye week, actually.
52-14 for me. I think the defense has a big day today. Should be fun to watch.
45-17, I think OU is going to come out a little slow just because of who their competition is. But besides that, they're way too good. Way too good to be in that situation. So I guess we'll just see. And that will conclude Game Day U. Once again, we are live from Waco, Texas. So from me, Kenneth Adair, Reagan Ledbetter, and Colin Kennedy, follow us on social media. Check out our website. We will see you, not next week because it's a bye week, but the week after that for more Game Day U. Stay with us. Thank you. Good morning.